It's 7 p.m. and we will start the Jefferson Elementary School District meeting tonight, March 10, 2001 at 7 p.m. Get members present.
Clayton Koo.
Here.
Marie Brizuela.
Here.
Andrea Jordan.
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anawai.
Here.
Maybell Monio.
Here. Great. Good to see you, everybody. And could I ask Dr. Joyner, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Sure. Hold on one second. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Present. All right. If you can all stand, if possible. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. And now we will review the governance team meeting guidelines. Okay, and then on to item 5, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as forwarded.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, great. On to board member acknowledgements and commendations. Trustee Brizuela, would you like to go first?
I don't really have anything to say at this time. Just comment to keep healthy, and hopefully everything's going to be going smoother very soon. And I'm happy to hear the good news. And get your vaccination, everybody.
Thank you, Trustee Brizuela. Trustee Koo, would you like to go?
Sure. I want to echo everything that Trustee Brizuela just said regarding staying safe and getting the vaccine when you get a chance. I want to wish everybody a happy March. I realize spring is literally right around the corner, so hoping that spring brings a better 2021 as well. I also wanted just to commend one event I attended last week, actually. JFK had a virtual talent show. It wasn't the same as in person, but I thought everyone did a great job there, so just want to commend all of them for a job well done.
Great, thank you so much, Trustee Koo. Trustee Jordan, would you like to go?
I also don't have much to say, so good evening, everyone, and I look forward to this meeting and the rest of the evening.
Great, and Trustee Laina Anawai.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. Happy Women's History Month. Appreciate all the great women that I'm surrounded by here on this call and outside of this call in our Zoom meeting. I too want to say thanks to Superintendent Vidalis for facilitating the scheduling of the vaccinations for our educators and staff who were willing to participate in that. And we are on our way to better days. And that's the hope that I'm holding on to, definitely holding on to that. So great to be here tonight, and let's continue to be safe and well.
Yes, Trustee Laina Anawai, I concur. Definitely hopeful for the future and seeing light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccinations. Thank you, Superintendent Vidales, for coordinating, and to all the teachers and staff that were willing to go and get that. And cheers to all of the great women in our lives, and happy Women's History Month as well. And I know that this new stimulus bill is going to help a lot of those in need. So also looking forward to that and having people being relieved from that. So evening, everybody, and we'll move on to superintendent comments.
Thank you, President Manio and trustees. Yes, so as others have mentioned, we are well on our way to getting most of our staff vaccinated with the first dose. I just supported a couple more staff members today to make a first appointment, and we'll be getting others on their way here by the end of the week. And as President Manio spoke about, the federal relief legislation was passed and will be signed here soon in the next coming days. It's hard to know exactly how much we will get, but just leave it to say that it's a lot of money for our school district. So we'll be able to help pay for some of the improvements that we've made, as well as be able to plan for, future learning opportunities for our students, extending the school year, school day, tutoring opportunities, lots of different experiences. And trouble, I don't even know how long we have to spend it, but between that and the state, you have like 16 months to spend a whole lot of money, and you want to do it thoughtfully. So we're hoping to be able to present something to the board so that we can move forward with that. And then I did get a letter from the San Mateo County Office of Education. Later on today, Ms. Kessler is going to be presenting on the second interim report, but we just received their comments on the first interim. Everything is good. They agree with the board's certification. They also cautioned us and said, you need to look at the 22-23 school year because our enrollment has dropped, and that will present a possibly funding challenge for our school district if we don't put things into place or start considering how we might be able to meet that challenge. So just good to know that they're also looking at that and going to support us as we move forward. And then one piece of good news, well, there's lots of good news, but a piece of good news that I got this afternoon from one of our school sites from TR Policita. One of their classrooms participates in this solar suitcase program. They get materials from PG&E and they assemble them in class, connect all the wires and the circuits and everything into a suitcase that serves as a solar energy generator. And then they send it to We Share Solar, which is a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And We Share Solar then ships those across the world to communities that don't have power resources, so that they can have lighting and enough energy to charge mobile phones and things like that. So they got a note recently from a refugee camp in Kenya, thanking them for sending them a solar suitcase. And so there's pictures, and I'll forward those pictures to you guys. Pictures of the Darfur, it's called the Darfur camp, in Kenya. So it's a refugee camp. I'm guessing it's for Darfur refugees and their schools and their teachers, using the solar suitcase that was constructed by our TR Policita students. So it's nice for the students to be able to see how their efforts in Daly City can have an impact clearly all the way across the world, maybe just on the opposite side of the globe from where they sit, to support education efforts there as well. So I'll forward you that newsletter and pictures. I'm sure you'll like to see them.
That's amazing, wonderful, and I'm so proud of our students, and I don't know, I'm in awe of it. I love hearing those stories. So we would definitely look forward to those pictures, Superintendent Vidales. And moving on to 7A, our consent agenda. We'll take a motion if there's no discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second that motion.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Okay. Then we will move on to C, 2021-2022 CSEA chapter number 233 contract renewal proposal sunshine and schedule of public hearing. A public hearing will be held on March 24, 2021 to receive public input on the CSEA chapter 233 contract renewal proposal for the 2021-2022 school year. CSEA is proposing to open negotiations on Article 5, wages, Article 6, health and welfare, and Article 8, hours and conditions of employment. The administration recommends setting a hearing date acknowledging the receipt of and direct sunshine and distribution for public review. The contract proposal for 2021-2022 by CSEA Chapter 233 as required by the ROTA Act. Are there any speakers on this?
No, we don't have any speakers on this nor the next one. And just for clarification, I know Ms. Jordan is new and we had this conversation already, but clarification for the public, this is just setting the hearing date to hear public comment. So the hearing date will be set for the next regularly scheduled board meeting. And we do need a motion and a second and a vote on this.
I'll make a motion that we schedule March 24th, 2021 for contract renewal proposal sunshine and scheduling of the public hearing as presented.
Second motion.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that was unanimous. Moving on to D, 2021-2022 JESD response to the CSEA chapter number 233 renewal proposal sunshine and schedule of public hearing. A public hearing will be held on March 24, 2021 to receive public input on JESD's response to the CSEA chapter 233 contract renewal proposal for the 2021-22 school year. JESD is proposing to open negotiations on Article 5, wages, Article 6, health and welfare, and Article 14, grievance procedure. The administration recommends setting the hearing date, acknowledging the receipt of and direct sunshining and distribution for public review, the contract proposal for 2021-22 by CSEA Chapter 233 as required by the ROTA Act. And there are no speakers for this. Any discussion? If none, I'll take a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we set the hearing date for March 24, 2021, acknowledge receipt of the proposal and direct sunshine distribution for public review as required by the ROD Act.
I second the motion.
A motion and a second. And Superintendent Vidales, can I just make a point of clarification? The first, in item C, it says Article 8, and in item D, it's Article 14. So will we be doing both of those?
Yes, yeah. So Article 8 was a request by the unit, the CSEA unit, to bargain and negotiate that provision. And then the district also gets to make a selection of one additional article besides wages and benefits. And we select Article 14. So that's just to be transparent with our community, what's going to be discussed in the course of negotiations.
Got it. Okay, I have a motion. Thank you, Superintendent Vidales. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Moving to 8B, JESD attendance supports and ethnic studies pilot updates. Ms. Stephanie Martinez, Program Director, thank you for being with us, of Student Support Services, will provide updates on the JESD attendance supports and practices, as well as the progress of the JESD Ethnic Studies curriculum. Good evening, Ms. Martinez.
Hi, it's been a while. Good to see you guys. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so student services update. Attendance has been a challenge, to say the least. But we've definitely been working really hard on trying to do the best that we can and making sure that we're connecting with kids. So I'm going to give an overview today of just some of the things that we've done in effort, and just kind of highlight some rock stars and some efforts that have really, I feel, supported attendance and supported student connection during this time. So moving on, at the beginning of the year, I started out with meeting with administrators and my counselors, and then brought in front office staff just to kind of calibrate what we learned from last spring and try to set some priorities and outcomes for this year. And so really try to think about what are the things that influence attendance and how can we put in preventative types of supports and responsive supports towards those influencers, if you will. And so that was really great to set the tone that way, and just to have everybody kind of hear the same message, and to also reach out to other folks that definitely support us with making phone calls and making connections with families, such as our front office staff. So they're not always typically in my trainings, but this year I felt that they really needed to be there and needed to be a part of the conversation. So we had multiple forums and tried to make it accessible for everyone to be able to be in attendance, and or if they weren't able to be in attendance, we sent out notes and documents for them to reference about what our approach was going to be this year. So from those conversations, I also updated some documents that I had created in the previous year, just about responsibilities and roles of who supports us with getting students to school, making adult connections, making social connections, supporting through different challenges that students and families face in getting to school and participating fully in their education during this time. There's just a lot of things that can get in the way, especially it's still not normal to be at home and learn and not be at school, right? So it's definitely something that we're still working through. And I felt like, kind of setting the tone with everyone and trying to kind of capture what we did in the previous year, and again, add on or really highlight some things that worked well, just to give school sites some guidance. So I created these documents and sent it out district-wide, but mostly focused on my principals and front office staff and counselors, and really trained them through these documents and talked about what this would mean for each of the sites. And really, it's all about kind of pulling resources and making sure that we're all a part of the responsibility around getting students to school and supporting them. So just to kind of capture some of the things that I learned and some of the things we work through in the fall is, there's always new challenges. There were always new things that kind of came up as far as trends or needs. And so I really tried to focus my time in supporting systems and just continuing to support documents, supporting processes, answering questions, clarifying things, and really working through why families were having a difficult time and trying to then meet the needs of the home. And so with that came into doing more work around practices, and just kind of wanted to highlight, we updated our truancy process and tried to add more resources. There's definitely work to be done around that. I feel like we can definitely do more more gear up on the language that we use and make it more welcoming and really lend itself to allow for families to understand why coming to school is so important right now, more than just learning, but also the other things that kids are missing. So updating letters, adding in resources. And one of the things that we really focused on is working with our responsive services like Child and Family Services and our Daly City Police Department, who supports us as well in really identifying some harder needs to meet, making sure that when we make referrals, we're making them for the right reasons, and we're doing everything in our power to support families before going down that road. So I felt like that was really important. The pandemic really shed a lot of light on how we can sometimes be under-resourced or maxed out with our nonprofit organizations who serve our communities. So it just really made us kind of rework our systems and partner up with our nonprofits to make sure that we're getting families what they need and really being understanding and patient and supportive. And then also really pushed me into doing more direct support. So running family cafes, running family events. I usually put on a family event about once a month. And we were doing bi-weekly family cafes in Spanish and English. And we're still doing that, but now it's once a month instead of every other week. Also connecting and making direct referrals for priority families to get resources, financial resources, housing application assistance, food resources, clothing, household items. We have an internal process that we've worked through with Daly City Partnership, which has been amazing in expediting families to get their needs met. And I felt like that was really, really something I'm really proud of, because I felt like we saw a need and we did it, and it actually happened and worked. And super exciting to see that. And we're still doing that, making direct referrals. And we also did a lot of hotspot providing and tech training and platform training. Families are really having to learn all the different platforms and in which students access throughout the day. So that was, new and expanding on that from last year. And then again in spring, we're really trying to focus on what worked in the fall and trying to make sure that we have that across the board. So got together with my counselors recently and other nonprofit providers and talked about what we're providing in the spring to kind of calibrate so that if it's not happening in our schools, it's happening outside of our schools and families and students can access it easily. And then continuing to have our meetings to work through ongoing challenges and, just focusing on strategy and practices and just following up with our outside providers and following up with also our responsive providers to make sure that we are getting families the access that they need and not traumatizing them even more or preventing them or we're trying to remove barriers for their access. And then continuing all the family support that I've been doing in the fall, just going to continue it in the spring. And I'm sure there will be new needs brought to my attention and we'll just continue to add that. Most of our family events have been in the evening and we've offered all languages so that families can access information. And we're also trying to capture information and send that out after families attend so they have reference and don't have to write everything down themselves. So we're really trying to be better about capturing information and making it accessible for families. And just, shout outs to some of our intervention experts. If you look at this list, for those of you who have been on the board for a while, we keep growing with counseling services. And I'm so proud of that because I feel like without them, of course, teachers too, and front office staff and our administrators, doing everything in over beyond to support at-home learning, support families and students. But I really feel like our counselors have stepped up and have stretched themselves outside of the school counseling role to support the needs of the family alongside me without, any pushback or complaints. I feel like they've really stepped up and supported the work that we're doing this year. And I am really, really proud of them. And I just wanted to show you their faces because they can't always be with me. And I thought, wow, you've never really met all of them. And so here's our group. Super excited to have such a large group and just wanted you guys to kind of virtually meet them.
Hello.
I won't go through every one of them, but it's a great crew, as you could tell with their smiles. And some of the things that we did, so academic and social relationships and family support and involvement, all of these things influence students feeling connected to school, students prioritizing their academics and their learning. And I just wanted to highlight that I do feel like the counselors' efforts have really been targeting not only resources, but what students need support with. And so I just wanted to highlight that although this isn't always specific to attendance in their conversation, in their efforts, it influences attendance, because students that feel connected and that know that there's somebody there to support them, and that know that there's somebody that they can ask questions or, find solutions with, that they're going to feel like they belong and they want to go, as well as their relationship with their teacher. Of course, the teachers are number one for our students, but I also am really proud of the school counselor effort. So just wanted to highlight some of the data that we've collected this year. Over 7,000 contacts made, which is incredible. This is just elementary. And their top services provided are consultation, delivering classroom instruction, connecting with families, and attending virtual meetings. And as I said, although not all of them are directed towards attendance, I know that it influences attendance. And then our students are also telling us the same thing. We surveyed our students in December, and this is what they told us, that, they're really feeling positive about supportive relationships, positive feelings, rigorous expectations, and a sense of belonging. These were the highest rated positively categories for our students that we surveyed 3rd through 5th grade. And then to highlight middle school is definitely, faced with different challenges than elementary school. Our youth are, definitely coming to school. It's a little different on how they're being, supported, but I feel like my middle school counselors have also really, really stepped up to the plate and are doing a lot of work, again, around individual check-in and sessions. I see that our middle school students are able to communicate and ask for help more than our elementary school students. So we do always see a higher number around individual check-in and group support. Consultation meetings, though, is up there as well, group counseling and connection with families. So just a trend in both, settings. Connection with families is in our top priority. And again, students reporting back out to us in the middle school, 6th through 8th grade, around feeling really positive about supportive relationships, positive feelings, rigorous expectations, and classroom effort. So just wanted to highlight those things from the data that we've looked at this year. And then just to let you know, what are we doing about attendance in the spring? I just wanted to highlight some of the interventions that we feel are necessary in the spring, and just to kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse about, of the things that we're going to be doing. As you can see, a lot of it has to do with social connections and support, and making sure that students know that they have somebody on campus, even if it's virtual, that checks in with them or that supports them and that meets with them regularly. Some of these things are provided by myself, and most of the things are provided by our school counselors on this list. So just wanted to highlight this just so you know what's happening in the spring and where we're focusing our efforts. One of the other highlights, like I kind of mentioned earlier, was resources to families. And so I realized last spring, I've always been a part of family engagement efforts, but never this much. And I definitely enjoyed it, and I definitely learned a lot about community resources, about family needs. And it was just, really challenging to coordinate. But I also feel like at the end of fall, we felt like we really were able to help the families that needed it the most. And so just kind of wanted to capture some of the data about, how many family evening events I coordinated, family cafes, and then we also have monthly meetings with our nonprofit organizations to talk about trends and needs and supports, just to make sure that we're all supporting each other. And like I said before, just like for students, we just also want to have our families be able to access things through the district supports and also through community supports. So this is just kind of a capture of working on connection to resources. And then I'm also working on direct services provided by the district. It's a lot to read, so I'm just, trying to capture it all. And our attendance rate, not too bad in my viewpoint. I just wanted to kind of highlight our district-wide attendance rate is 97.9%. We have 5% in the chronic absenteeism. And to be honest, I have every other Friday I do meet with principals and counselors, and we're having ongoing conversations. And a lot of the things that are getting in the way are things that, you know, are just a result of what we're dealing with. And I feel like everybody's doing their best. Families are trying their best. Staff are trying their best, and students are doing the best they can. And so that's why I kind of captured it's 100% effort. I don't feel like we're, you know, letting anything go. I feel like we're being as persistent as we can, but also giving grace to families, and also being very, you know, understanding that this is not normal times, and we have to be flexible, and we have to be resourceful, and we have to continue trying to find solutions and continue to be patient with the circumstances that we're in. So for the summer, in case you were wondering, we're just going to be looking at what did we do in the fall and spring? How can we do that in the summer? There's going to be some summer offerings. We're really trying to refer kids into anything that is available to them in the summer. So hopefully there will be things that kids can participate in person, because that's the goal. And so we're really talking about summer supports and making sure that we keep track of our students during the summer, and make sure that, you know, we don't just fall off and not ensure that they still are receiving the things that they need to gear up for fall. And just in summary of my attendance presentation, this is something I had sent out to staff. I just feel like personally, this has been a learning experience. And, you know, I feel like we're all facing challenges and setbacks personally and professionally. And I feel like it just really brought upon a sense of community for me, and compassion, and you know, pushed me into doing things that we normally haven't done as a district. And I'm just really proud of us. And I'm really proud of my teams and proud of our sites. And that was it for attendance.
Why don't we just take a pause here? So let's give you a break, and we can hear some from the board. But just wanted to remind the board that in our conversation, my conversation with you last fall, that you identified wanting to learn more about attendance and attendance practices, and what are we doing to support positive attendance and positive approaches. And so I asked Ms. Martinez if she would prepare something like this, so that the board can have a better sense of our work in this area. And same thing with the ethnic studies update. So you'll be hearing that in a few minutes. But any questions or comments or thoughts on this portion, on the attendance review?
Ms. Martinez, just want to say thank you for the presentation, as always. I have immense appreciation for your work and everybody else's work, especially your intervention specialists and counselors and everything, for all they do right now, especially because it's a lot harder, I would say, in 2020, 2021 to do something in terms of attendance and supporting your students than it would be in a regular year. I just had a question in terms of, I know that as we head into the end of this school year and next year, I was wondering what your thoughts were in terms of sort of kind of supporting sort of keeping the attendance rates as it is right now, especially as we head into the new year or new school year. And I think in terms of also like trying to make sure that people don't necessarily feel exhausted from this year in terms of going classes every day on Zoom. So just wondering what your thoughts were in terms of sort of next step for the fall.
Yeah, I feel like our kids are more resilient than we sometimes think. But I definitely know that I've been talking with my teams about the recovery period. I feel like we're all surviving and doing the best that we can and helping each other. And it's kind of like, you know, when you really think about it, a traumatic situation where when things start to get stable, it's actually the hardest time to recover and to replenish yourself and get back to the day-to-day and the normalcy that we've we are used to. So we've had conversations. I feel like we're going to have more conversations around May, so that we can get our spring efforts kind of underway. But yes, we definitely want to do more next year before school starts. And, that was a lesson learned. I think we're always trying to be considerate of time and capacity, and schools usually start really quickly. Right? Most of the teachers come back the day before. So it's just really hard to have that kind of time to prepare together. So I'm hoping we can do some of that, but I also want to be respectful of people's capacity in the spring. But we have to gear up for it. We want to put together a lot of supports, kind of front load information for families on what to be prepared for in the fall. And also to support students in transitioning back to the routine of going to school, getting up early, getting dressed, being present, communicating, playing for the little ones, right? And the older ones. It's going to be a challenge. So what we're talking about right now is how can we set up our systems to be preventative right before school starts in tier 1, 2, and 3, and then responsive for adults too, not just students, but for students, adults, and families. What are we going to have where all families and students have and staff have access to? And then what are we going to do that's maybe targeted, that's a little bit more of a smaller kind of group support service? But we've been brainstorming some ideas. And also, I know that Bernie's been great about sharing our virtual calm room. We've definitely been working on rooms as such in our schools, but I feel like that's something that we're trying to think about. How can we bring that to real life and make sure that everyone has access to it? And it's not just for students, but I'm really, really thinking about our staff. I feel like all of the adults in our building have worked tirelessly, and they're going to need us to step up. We're usually always focused on kids, but I feel like the adults is where I'm at for fall, to be honest, because if it's kind of like that saying, if you don't take care of yourself, you're not able to take care of anybody else, right?
Yep, I totally agree. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and I was going to say, if it's possible, as we start the new school year, if we could potentially get maybe another update in terms of sort of what your team is working on, I think that'd be just so nice to see some of the progress you guys made, and also some of the new ideas that we could use to kind of support our students and everybody else into the new year.
Yeah, that would be definitely.
I want to say thank you to Ms. Martinez. You never disappoint. You're truly a gem in our community. I appreciate you and all the work that you and all the teams are doing. And I'm glad, because my question, you actually answered my question, because it seemed to be student focused, but like you said, our teachers are taking care of our teachers, and our staff are taking care of the heart of our curriculum and our efforts, and it's translated into success for the students. And so I love hearing that all the efforts and the initiatives that are in place and that you're forecasting are an inclusive approach. And I do look forward to hearing of the updates and the progress and feedback being made when we do look forward to a new school year, which hopefully will give us a snapshot, a little bit more hope of some sense of normalcy and more connectedness, physical connectedness. But all of your efforts are truly appreciated. Very, very grateful. I did want, and I have to say that I find our attendance rate quite impressive, because I've been to other meetings and I saw another school district at 75%. To see ours, I'm very pleased to see that. I was just wondering, off the top of your head, with regards to some of the students that are struggling, I know that it's sign of the times, but was there anything else that you see that's causing some of that attendance issues or truancy? Was there any other instances or occurrences or experiences that stood out for you? I'm just curious.
I mean, I feel like the major trend is kind of like the last thing I said, hierarchy of needs. I feel like families and students Well, I think it's two. It's like environment, right? Who is used to working and learning from home when there's so many? That's supposed to be your Zen space. That's supposed to be your family space. That's supposed to be your downtime. And I think that students definitely have a hard time adapting and adjusting to that. And I also think on the other side of things, I mean, you guys probably experience it, those of you who have children at home, just your priorities are, it's not that academics isn't a priority. It's just that there's other things that get in the way of 24/7 monitoring, to make sure their cameras on, or, they're participating, or they finish all their assignments. So I feel like it's just the circumstance, like, families need to either go work, or they had a call, or they had a meeting that was unexpected, or one of the children needs more support. So then the others are just kind of doing their own thing, and they're being children and participating, but maybe not, I think it was a lot of that that came up. But I do feel like one of the trends was just the stress, the financial stress, the home insecurity stress, the resource stress, the fear. And we tried to address that in different ways by having, parent events where it was more, kind of informational, but also in practice, like how can you take care of yourself? How can you use some of the practices that we're doing in the schools to regulate, to push through, and or ask for help? Because there's also families that don't ask for help. So I feel like we tried to address that with our family cafes and our family events, but again, that's yet another thing for our families to come to. So I just think it's just that. It's just like where everybody puts their energy is different, and it's different every day. I even feel that. I'm sure you guys feel it too. You're trying to focus your energy on one thing, and then something else comes up, right? And whether it's a family or a friend or your work, somebody needs to talk or work through a problem. I think that families are still going through those things as well. If that kind of answers, like, that's kind of what I see. Because I believe all of our families, are truly just amazing, and they love their children, and they're doing everything that they can. But life is getting in the way right now. It's surviving. It's not easy.
Thank you. Thank you again. Keep up the great work.
Yeah. And I want to make sure, though, it's like not just me. Like, I couldn't do it without everybody that's by my side, and including the folks in this room. I always feel supported. And if I need support, like, I can always call upon, anybody here. So I feel like that also is the reason why I'm able to be who I am and like do what I do too, because I have support, and I try to do that for my teams. And I don't always get to do that for every single staff member, but I hope that by doing that with the ones that I can touch, that they then do that for each other at the site. That's the goal. But thank you for your questions, and thank you for your comments. I really appreciate them.
I also just want to say, Ms. Martinez, that it's great to see you, and I love to hear about all of the support going on. We are truly lucky to have you in this district. We really are. You and all of our counselors were jolted into the throes of this pandemic, and you and all of them really stepped in and stepped up to the challenge, and those efforts are definitely not unnoticed. And I agree, it's really hard to thrive when you're in survival mode. So kudos to you, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. So up next is another committee that I'm a part of. Really honored to be a part of this group, and just really excited about the work. So hopefully I give it the credit that it deserves. But I feel like I'm just representing the work. The teachers have been really, really just doing all of it. I'm just there to support them and encourage and chime in when I can. But I really just want to make sure that that's clear, that our Ethnic Studies Committee they're just incredible, and they're working overtime in evenings and multiple days a week sometimes. And I just am really, really proud, because just like what we talked about, even with that, they're still dedicated to this work that we committed to prior to the pandemic, and ensuring that our students get this experience in the timeline that we set out to accomplish it. So just wanted to highlight some of the members, all of the members. There are some members that have taken pause, but I definitely credit them to helping us get to where we are up until this point. And so I just wanted to kind of shout out with the teams and included the administrators, because they're starting to join the work to figure out how we're going to do this. Nothing set in stone. So just in case those questions come in, this is really just still a working thing. We're developing it. We're talking through it. We're figuring out how it's going to, play out. But I just wanted to at least share where we're at right now. And I'm just super excited. This is our San Francisco state leaders. And so they're really in charge of training and guiding and supporting our work. And so I just wanted to also shout outs to them. They're incredible and genuine, just like hearts that you're not going to meet people like them very often. And so I just really, really always enjoy. We happen to be, we selected Friday evenings. I don't know how. It's a really hard thing, but we're in it and we committed to it. And I just want to shout out the team, because they always make it really productive and supportive. And I always forget that I'm working on a Friday night when I'm in their space with them. So really appreciative of all of them. I have all of your faces are blocking my screen because I like to see you guys. So ethnic studies and JESD, this is a rough draft of where we're at, what we've accomplished. Most of what we've done in the fall is just PD, curriculum development. We're still refining our curriculum. The teachers have developed 4 units and self, systems, social movements, and solidarity. They're just getting to the point where they're finishing the first and second unit. And then the rest of the spring, we're going to finalize the 3rd and 4th unit. And so that's really exciting, because I can't even believe that they've done it with all the other things that are on their plate, and shifting to distance learning, continuous shifting to distance learning for almost like a full year. We're in March. So definitely they're working tirelessly. So the spring, we're going to try to finalize that. And then we're also going to think about recruiting our elementary school reps and gearing up for those folks to join the work. And we won't start that group until next year, but there's just, conversations that need to be had and questions that need to be answered from elementary school teachers. And so that's really exciting. We're going to be working on that in the spring. And then in the summer, the idea is to try to have a summer institute where we really just celebrate the work that's been accomplished, also onboard the new teachers, and maybe even bring in any others that need to be involved to support the pilot for next year. And so that's where we're at, in our thinking. And it's really exciting, and we're still going to be together in the summer. So just to shout that out, they worked last summer too. Just really, really doing everything that they can to make this happen for JESD students. And I just kind of wanted to share with you guys the mission that they've created. And again, this is a working mission. And I don't know if you guys want me to read it, or if you want to. I feel like I'm talking so much. So, just to let you know, here's our
I can read it so you can give your voice a pause. Okay. Jefferson Elementary School District vision for ethnic studies: to eliminate racism and other forms of oppression. The vision for ethnic studies in JESD calls for the creating, learning, listening, uncovering, and sharing of her stories, experiences, and current conditions of those who have been racially marginalized, underrepresented, and or silenced. JESD Ethnic Studies promotes humanization, self-actualization, solidarity, and community building. Through ethnic studies, students develop their identities, agency, and power so they can better advocate for themselves and the vulnerable while working together to create a more socially just world.
Well done.
Yeah.
It has a lot in it.
A lot of very big concept words in there.
We are ambitious and we definitely want to accomplish everything. I could do this one. Our mission is, so that was our vision. This is our mission. At the middle school level, ethnic studies provides necessary curricular interventions across subject areas while also setting the foundation for a designated ethnic studies course. The middle school ethnic studies curriculum upholds the district vision and standards in the following units: self, systems, social movements, and solidarity. The standards that the committee has developed are for students to develop social, political, and academic literacy through curriculum that engages students in a relevant education where they learn about themselves, their families, their peers, and communities, embraces difference and connections while teaching empathy and solidarity, eliminates racism and other forms of oppression, and empowers students to become socially and politically active, encouraging them to address societal problems that impede self and community actualization. And I say middle school because we haven't developed these things for elementary. So I really wanted to make sure that that was highlighted. Our elementary committee will also do their work and develop that for our elementary school students. And in typical times, I usually have somebody to present with me or something. I try to, at least. And I wanted to allow you to meet the committee. And I asked them a couple questions. I asked them, kind of kept it a little broad, but a little bit specific about what this work has done or how it has changed or influenced them as a professional, as a teacher. And then I also asked, what do they hope or wish for that this will deliver to students, or what kind of experience do they hope for our students with this curriculum?
Hello, my name is Sherry Fabry. I work at Fernando Rivera, and I'm an English teacher for 6th grade. I've been heavily influenced in my teaching by ethnic studies. I now teach through an ethnic studies lens where I think about my students' self-identity and how they can, how my lessons can reflect on that. I also am thinking more about how to build community within my classrooms and to bring solidarity to my students.
What experiences do you think ethnic studies will provide to your students? I'm a teacher at Fernando Rivera. My name is Sue McMahon-Diogi, and I am just really excited to get ethnic studies started in Jefferson Elementary School District. It's so important for our students to feel that their voices are heard and to really have an opportunity to hear the truth and to really feel respected in all that they learn. I can't wait until we can bring this to our school district. Thank you.
Everybody, I am Flordalyn Arroco Castillo, and I teach language arts at Fernando Rivera. This work influenced me as a teacher by giving me agency to allow for a safe learning space for my students to learn about themselves and their community through an equitable and culturally responsive lens.
Hi, I'm Matthew Roberto from Ben Franklin. I teach 8th grade US history. And what experience do I think ethnic studies will provide for our students is knowledge of history and how their culture and ethnicity has impacted our world, the great heroes that they have, and the great heroes who help shape our world, including their own families and their beautiful cultures that really brought about a really incredible world story. So I hope to be able to give them that and to help see them and their confidence grow and help to see that they pursue their education to the highest of levels. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Owens, and I'm a math teacher at TRP. And this ethnic studies experience has completely changed the way that I see the world and the way I see my role as a teacher. In addition to developing this ethnic studies curriculum, I want to find ways to incorporate critical pedagogy and ethnic studies concepts into my math classes so that all students can benefit from it. This has been the best professional experience of my life, and it really reminded me of why I became a teacher in the first place.
Hey there, I'm Dom Lam. I'm a middle school teacher at FDR. And, you know, ethnic studies is really important. It allows us to have a change in perspective. And right now I see students, they see the world around them. They see the world and they're thirsty. They're thirsty for knowledge. They're thirsty for understanding. They want to see and understand more about oppression and racism. So this is it. This is the it topic, and let's get it started. Let's go.
We felt like he was a good outro. All right, so ultimately we're trying to, build places where kids love to learn, not just about the typical things, but about themselves, about each other, about their community. That's the end goal. And so that's what we hope to create in all of our schools. And it's really exciting work. And so super proud of the team and all the work that they've done. And just really glad that we have your support. And, we couldn't do it without that. And that's the end. Thank you. And if you need to ask any more questions, you can always reach me via email or, however. And thank you for having me. Thank you. You guys are always so supportive, and it's just really nice I feel so supported when I come to these meetings, and I feel like you guys are, the reasons why positions like mine exist and resources like mine are accessible to families and students and staff. And so I really, really appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Just thank you very much for updating all of us on this. And I have every great feeling that this is working, and I like to see it continue.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask with regards to the curriculum, if there was going to be an opportunity to have community voices and community historians participate in engaging the students from that lens. And then I also was wondering when there is another update, during that update, would we have an opportunity to see what the initial curriculum will I guess encompass? I know that there were so many areas during this ethnic studies year of what was going to be included, what was going to be excluded, and just trying to redefine what that would look like for school districts. So I'm just wondering if we get our next update, if we would be able to get some of that information as well.
I can answer this.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Yes, I think that this is an introductory course. It's targeted to a 6th grade understanding of the world and life. And that's why you see some of the self-identity and developing those major ethnic studies concepts. And speaking with the main facilitator, I'll call her Allison, and Mabel, you can speak her last name. I try all the time, and I rather not. But the ideas of how this gets developed over the course of a middle school experience, that there's an opportunity for more ethnic studies content in terms of different ethnicities at a 7th and an 8th grade level. And this one, it's sort of around the students and beginning to develop those concepts that get built on later. For sure, we'll bring back some samples of what these units are and what they will show. But they're based a lot on the work that's been done out of ethnic studies. Dr. Allison is one of the writers of the model ethnic studies curriculum. And so she's very familiar with the field and helping us to think about what it looks like for this developmental age is important. And at first I thought it was going to be very much more content focused, like we're going to learn about different ethnicities and different contributions of different groups. And it is that, but not yet. It is more about who am I? What are my identity? How do I identify myself? Where are my struggles and my community struggles? How do I support and partner with others who may not have and share my identity, but we need to be partners and allies to overcome the difficulties that we might be facing as a group. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate this conversation. I get emotional around this. Superintendent Vidalis knows I've been testifying regularly. And I have seen Allison, I'm sorry, with my name, I have no right to butcher her last name, but I cannot get it right either. And I apologize. And I appreciate the tremendous work. And I always want to, without offending anyone, I've said it during the ethnic studies public hearing, I just speak to authenticity. And I get the fact that we're speaking to ethnic studies. My humble ask as an individual, as a woman of color, and someone who has been a proponent of ensuring that ethnic studies is implemented, implemented with authenticity. And I say that from a lens of knowing of how I am not in the curriculum that I hope to see my kids, my nieces and my nephews, and all of our students in JESD and outside of JESD to be impacted with a level of, I get the broader scope of the work and introductory, but I really want to encourage us even to give a dose right at the beginning of what it looks like and what the hope is to be, instead of building up to it. And I believe it can happen. And the reason why I say this is that I have loved the progress that is being made with SFUSD. And they have been amazing. And they've done it in a very short time because they came to us, talked about it, I think almost a year ago. And one of the pioneers passed away during that time. She is a candidate for renaming, but the reason why I bring it up is that in less than a year, and Allison has been involved, they've been able to incorporate certain pieces with really speaking to that authenticity of what it looks like from those community perspectives. That's why I brought up community voices. Even if we could share community voices in some way and integrate that into how we're kicking it off, I just believe it sets the tone. That's my humble opinion, but I've just been involved with forms of ethnic studies pretty much all my life and in the work that I do outside of my board hat. So that's my humble ask. And I don't want to take up any more your time, but I thank you for, blazing this trail for us, because we've talked about it. We've dreamed about it. I know when I came on this board, I only hoped for it. And I'm glad to see that we're seeing some movement. So thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like this wouldn't be genuine or authentic without honest conversations. So I appreciate your feedback and your humble ask, and we'll definitely give more information at the next presentation. We're just not there yet to really give it all. It's still in the works. So I know that the committee is super vested and they want to make sure that this is something that lasts longer than any of us, and that is a true representation of our community and what we're trying to set as values and in priorities in learning. So I appreciate that, and I will definitely bring that back to the team.
Thank you. Thank you always, Ms. Martinez. Thank you. I appreciate you receiving that it's shared with a lot of love and positivity, because I too, I'm right there with you. I want it to last longer than all of us, and that make sure that it remains, you know, that we're all invested and it remains here in JESD. So thank you.
I would like to also make a comment. Ms. Martinez, thank you so much for this presentation. I think I said it at the last meeting. I'm really blessed and grateful that I am inheriting all the hard work that you've put in, you know, prior to me even joining the board. I actually also echo Trustee Liaiga Anuai's sentiments with regards to ethnic studies. Obviously, as a woman of color myself, this is something, and I have two children that are also girls of color, and this is something that is near and dear to me. Actually, before, and I will share something, before I joined the board, I actually had a conversation with Superintendent Vidales and Dr. Joyner with regards to our curriculum, and I reviewed it thoroughly to find out when our students were starting to learn about some of these things, and it wasn't until the 8th grade where they really started to have these difficult conversations. And so I'm actually very happy to hear that we're also, you know, I know we started off at the middle school level, but that the elementary school teachers are also going to be pulling this together, because quite honestly, it needs to be happening from the very beginning. I also wanted to make a comment. I know that someone on the video had said, well, the kids are really interested because it's the it thing. And so I'm also very happy that you said you want it to be long-term, because yes, it's the it thing now, but I don't want it to be very similar to, oh, well, we're now having protests and there's this uproar and, oh, that's why we need to focus on it. And that's why we need to hire people of color. No, we should have been doing that from the beginning. No, we should have been having these conversations from the beginning, because if we wait until the uproar, if we wait until it's bad. I mean, the same things that have been happening, you know, in the 1900s, in 1950, in 1990, I mean, they're just still happening over the course of time. And so it's never an it thing. I just want to make sure that that is very clear, that this is a thing that's been happening for years. And to address this, we need to make sure that we're addressing it for long term and not for we're solving something for the now because it's all over the news and it's politicized, and you know, we want people to be aware of it, but not just aware of it now from the past and what the future holds if we don't really tackle this issue now in our country. So I just wanted to make that point very clear. And then obviously I again echo Trustee Liaiga Anuai's thoughts on coming back to the board, presenting this information, because I think as a community member, I have a stake in this. I want my children and their children to continue to feel safe and learn about who they are, where they come from, and other people, so that they can truly have a lens that it doesn't matter the difference that we have in this world. We're all here to hopefully make a difference, hopefully to move on and get older and just live our lives in peace, and not in, you know, kind of turmoil that has happened based on all the things that we've seen in 2020 and going into 2021. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Nice to meet you, by the way. This is our first encounter, and I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, you speak your truth, and I'm definitely hearing it. And, you know, we're trying to set something up for students to feel included, to feel safe, to feel like they can be who they are, that they can bring in themselves into their learning spaces and not just receive information, but bring themselves into the information and apply it to real life. We're influencing the next generation. And so I feel like we have to, you know, that we have to take that responsibility very serious. And we have to do the things that are setting our students in our communities and our systems up to be different.
I just like to say something too. Serving the longest as most all of these board members, I just wanted to tell you that this isn't a beginning. We have been doing things a lot for our students, and a lot of things that have been promoting them knowing who they are and what their gifts are, because every child has a gift, and we do recognize that. But I like this conversation so we can do it even more, or at least have the opportunity to blow the horn when we have been doing the things that we have been doing in the past. This is not new, and we have done things for our students, and maybe we haven't shared enough of that, with everybody to know what's really happening. I want to thank our teachers, our counselors, and everyone who has worked tremendously hard throughout these years to make every student feel welcomed. And we had programs before that actually children would get up and go around another child who was being disrespected. And maybe we need to go back and look at those programs and add that to the list of what we need to continue to do that we have done before. So I just wanted to say that because it's almost sounding to me like we haven't done anything, but we have. I just want to see it even better, but I want to go back and look to see what we have done and how many children have appreciated what they got. And let's continue to do that. And not, it's sounding, if I didn't know any better, that we have not done anything, but we have. So please, let's not forget the past that when we have done things, and welcome how we can extend it even more. I just had to get that feeling. Maybe I felt that way sitting here listening to all this, but I have been there and I've heard it and I've seen it and I know the programs that we have used. Let's just continue to build it up and not put it feeling like we've done nothing. Because I think that that's not being fair to our teachers, our counselors, and everyone who has been wonderful throughout the years. So I'm sorry I had to say that, but I've just felt like it sounded like we have been doing nothing. So, okay, sorry.
No.
I had to share that because I'm passionate about it, and we have done a lot for our students. And if there is a child out there that's feeling not part of it, we need to be told that. And we need our teachers, our parents, and everybody to come together to know that they can come and talk about it. If there's anything that somebody's feeling that they're not being honored, we need to know that. And we do it on a daily basis, not just, okay, let's talk about it once now, as if we've done nothing. I just had to share that. But thank you for letting me say it.
Of course, we want all of our voices to be heard, and it's not to dismiss any work that's been done in previous years or not appreciate anything. I mean, I'm always giving appreciations, and I definitely know that we've been working really hard. And this isn't just one course, it's bigger than that. It's a whole school-wide change, and we're always striving to be better in JESD, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. But it's for me here, just hearing it sounds like we haven't done anything, but I want it to be clear that our district has been a really great district of making sure we're reaching out. And if we need to do more, yeah, we do more, but it's almost sounded like we hadn't done anything. So I just wanted to share that. Okay.
Thank you, Roswella. Trustee Koo, do you have any comments or questions?
No comment. Just want to say thank you for the presentation. Great to see progress and look forward to see what more comes up soon.
Thank you again. I appreciate you all, and stay well, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Get your vaccination.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye. Good night.
Good night. That was great and very informative, and I look forward to the updates. And for anybody wondering, it is Dr. Allison Tintianco Cubales. So wonderful. Let's move to 9B, fiscal year 2020-2021, second interim budget review. Ms. Julie Kessler, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, will present highlights of the 2020-2021 second interim financial report for the period ending in January 31 of 2021. The administration recommends that the Board of Education, A, review the second interim, B, approve the filing of the positive certification of financial condition, and C, approve the revision of the working budget to correspond with the projected year totals. Good evening, Ms. Kessler.
Good evening. Well, that is going to be a hard act to follow. It was very exciting, very passionate, very engaging, supporting our students, our families, our staff, and ethnic studies and attendance and everything. Yeah, that's and I'm going to talk about finance. So I'm sorry, it's not going to be quite as engaging, I'm sure. But I'd like to share my screen. Let me see if I can do this properly here. Okay, can you see my screen there?
Yep.
Great, finally. So obviously this is a second interim, it was just introduced. And the interim reports are done twice a year. The board is required to certify that we are able to meet the current year and following 2 years our financial obligations. And these are known as first and second interim. This is the second interim. And so it's a snapshot of time as of January 31st, 2021. So in this, we also have the 2 out years, so 21-22 and 22-23 as part of the official second interim. And we add the year 23-24 as just an extra year, but it is not part of the official report. So one thing that I do here is, because we do have a new board member, so I can explain this a little bit, is the first interim, we explain the changes since adoption. And in the second interim, we explain the changes in the unrestricted general fund since the first interim. And the second interim generally has a lot fewer changes. The first one has a lot because, when we do the budget, we don't exactly know what our staffing is going to be and such. But when we come to the second interim, there are not that many changes, and you can see that here. Our total changes between revenues and expenditures is $112,000 when you add these two together, of a decrease to our fund balance, actually. So we have a decrease to revenues, and the majority of that is because our unduplicated percentage went down, and clearly it's gone down. We're in a COVID year here. And hopefully this will be the end of the COVID years that we have to deal with this. But because all students were able to have free and reduced free lunches, there was very little incentive for families to fill out free and reduced applications. And that consequently causes our unduplicated percent to go down. We did reach out to as many families as possible to try to get it as high as possible. And I guess we did a pretty good job considering the situation. And hopefully next year we will be able to recoup some of this. Now, the feds did extend the feeding program through the end of September now. So that could throw a snafu into next year as well, because again, there's not much incentive to fill out the free and reduced application. And if they continue it again after that, then I think we could be in a worse situation with the unduplicated percent. If they don't continue it, well, even if they do, it's at the end of September that they're going to provide the free meals. And we have to have the unduplicated students, the free and reduced lunches apply by usually October 31st. So it doesn't give us much time. In any case, that is why the revenues have gone down. That's the majority of them. We had some increased revenues, some donations, and then we had a reduced contribution to a restricted program or some restricted programs. We had also decrease in an overall decrease of expenditures of $34,000. And the majority of that had to do with statutory benefits. But then there were some increases because if we have more donations, then the sites have, we adjust their expenditure budget accordingly as well. So we allow them obviously to spend those funds. So also I want to just remind you that the last board meeting that I presented the governor's January proposal for the 21-22 year. And so you got a lot of information there. The majority of that information is not included in the second interim. because we wait for the May revise to build the next year's budget. And then of course, the legislature makes changes and doesn't adopt exactly what the governor wants. And then that's when we end up changing the following year's budget. But important here, and just a little refresher, is the 21-22 budget is expected to be giving us a 3.84% COLA. And again, that is a compounded COLA. So it's a 1.5% COLA for the 21-22 year, and then a 2.31% COLA for the current year that we did not get. They're going to add it to next year for just for the LCFF funding and not for the other funding. And then in this particular second interim report and in the multi-year projection, we took the more conservative 1.28% COLA for the following year and a 1.61% COLA for the year after that. Now the DOF, Department of Finance, they have it at 2.98% and 3.05%, but we just, we use a more conservative one. We've always done that. What happens will probably fall somewhere in between. I'm going to say it's probably going to fall closer to these numbers here, these percentages. Also, as I said, included in this second interim is the reduced unduplicated percentage. So for the current year, the rolling average is 67.05%. But because this year we actually went down to 64.4%, these years that you see here are 3-year averages. And so by the time you get to the out years, this is where we are actually at now. And that would just continue if we maintained our unduplicated percentage where we are now. And so this is incorporated, this reduction is incorporated into our multi-year projection. So, you know, again, hopefully we'll be able to go up and not down, but it's really, really hard to say at this point. And then also is a really big thing is our attendance. And of course, our attendance is based on our enrollment. And we've been experiencing declining enrollment for quite a few years now. And though this year we have declining enrollment protection that we get the previous year, and they extended that 1 year, as you know, into the 21-22 year. So we get 2 years of declining enrollment protection. And so that's what happens is after the 21-22 year, we get into the out years, we're dropping down from 5628 to 5398 students. And that's a 230 student drop that we will have to recognize unless our enrollment goes up. But then again, our enrollment could actually still go down. We don't know. And this 230 student drop is this amount over here, which I can't even see because all your pictures are in the way, but that's okay. It's a $2.3 million loss as a result of that. And that's in all the out years. Now that is already included in the multi-year projection that I'm going to be showing you. So here is that, that multi-year, and I'm going to have to reduce this so I can see the whole screen. Sorry, there we go. So this is the important line here. This is where this is for this year, second interim. We have a $2.5 million deficit spending. And then, as you see, this is where we get the big COLA boost, and our deficit spending almost goes away. But that's because we have that declining enrollment protection for this year as well. When we get to this 2022 year, we lose that declining enrollment protection, and we have a $4 million deficit spending as a result. You can see that we go from $48.3 million down to $46.1 million. And that is directly related to the enrollment. And then that carries on into the out years here. Now, this just under $1 million deficit spending might look, oh, we're improving. Well, not really, because up here, I'm including undesignated expenditure cuts of $3 million in order to get this to this number so that we will have our 3% reserve for economic uncertainty down here. Now, I know this all looks like doom and gloom, but given the COVID situation and everything that's been going on and all the stimulus funds that we are getting, I would like to show you some other slides because it'll help you feel a little bit better about it. It doesn't take us out of the dark because we are still deficit spending. So we do need to address that. Oops. So hold on a second. Sorry. There we go. This is what happens to our cash, our end fund balance. And again, this end fund balance, it only goes down a little bit because there is $3 million worth of decreased expenditures. Otherwise, we would have negative funds. And of course, we can't have that. So this is, I would say, other than the slide that I was showing with the deficit spending, this is kind of like the most important slide here for you to see, because I'm going to show you things that you should keep in mind and that these are not included in the multi-year projection. So first off, well, the stepping column is included in the multi-year projection, but no other negotiated salary increases for any out years is included in it. Flat funding is what we've got. I mean, flat enrollment. Like I said, I'm not including any additional declining enrollment. On the other hand, no increased enrollment. So we don't know where that's going to go. And the unduplicated percentage as well, we're just having that flat and go in the out years. Some years ago, we put aside $1,350,000 to help support employee health benefits. It was an employee health benefit reserve. And we have been contributing, the district has been contributing from this fund 80% of each year's increase in health benefit costs in the premiums. And the employee was responsible for the additional 20%. Well, at the end of this year, so June 30th of this year, we will have only $271,000 left of this $1.3 or $1.4 million. Next year, based on this year's rates, in order to offer them that same covering 80% of the increase, we would have to have $441,000. And that is if the rates did not increase again in 2022, which is it's doubtful that they won't increase. They probably will. So, but given the current rates, we are $170,000 short for next year to be able to fund even at the level we're funding now. Now, this is the part of the good news here. As you know, we have the ESSER 1 and the ESSER 2 funding. So the ESSER 1 is that $614,000. And we still have those funds. Those funds that we have not, but we have these funds to spend to help us with, in some situations, with new expenditures and other situations for ongoing expenditures. So this should mitigate some of our loss here. Although, again, we have to provide equitable services to private schools with this, offer them equitable services with these funds as well. Although that doesn't come to much money. It's really only about $10,000 that we have to provide them equitable services of. ESSER 2 is $2.5 million. And that is, again, not included. Neither of these is included in that multi-year projection. So these are funds that we are going to be getting. And the ESSER 2, we do not have to provide equitable services to the private schools. They're getting funds directly from the state, and we do not have to provide it through this. So again, these two amounts are not included. Then we get down to the CARES Gears funds. So $300,000 here, also not included in the multi-year projection. And by the way, these funds here, they have to be spent by September 30th of 2022. And the $2.5 million has to be spent by September of 30th of 2023. These have to be spent this year, this 300,000. And we've been concentrating on spending all those other not ESSER, but CARES funds that we had received. Now, in addition, the legislature did actually pass SB and AB 86, though it's not included in here either. And one of them is for the in-person learning to come back to the classroom by April 15th. And then we would get funding if we were able to do that. And if we couldn't do it quite then we lose money, 1% each day that we're late up through the middle of May, and then we lose everything. And so I don't know that we're going to be able to take advantage of this. It requires a bargaining agreement and many other things for the in-person learning to come back now. However, there is also the expanded learning opportunity grant, and we will be getting approximately $4 million there. And that also is not budgeted in our multi-year projection here. Those funds I believe those funds are to be spent by the end of, by September 2023. So they're not included in here. And then here I'm saying possible additional federal stimulus funds. Well, actually, and these are also not included, but we did get information today regarding this funding. And so our share of this funding should be approximately $5,451,000, which, so that's a big chunk of change. And 20% of that has to be set aside. So 1.1 million has to be set aside for learning loss mitigation. These funds, these are going to be called ESSER 3 funds. And they also do not need to, we don't have to offer equitable services to the private schools. They will be getting their own funding directly as well. And these funds will be required to be spent by September 30th of 2024. So as you see, we have these ESSER funds staggered 2022, 2023, 2024. This will allow us to be able to help support continuing the education that these students need in order to have as little learning loss as possible and get back on track. When we put all these funds together, it's these that are not included, it's $12.8 million worth. It's not all in one year. I mean, it's spread out through to be able to be used in several 3-year period. But it's a big chunk of change, just under $13 million that's not included in that multi-year projection. So as we're saying, we're asking for the board to certify a positive certification. We will be able to meet the our obligations for the current year and the subsequent 2 years. We may or may not have to look at reductions in the 23-24 year, but that is not actually a part of this second interim. And we will all be working together to determine how these funds can be appropriately spent for learning loss mitigation. And part of that is extending the year. That could be for summer school, that can be additional days in the school year, that can be for longer school days. So there are multiple ways, but of course I'm not the curriculum person, so I'm not the person who can speak to what is the best for our students. So if I can answer any questions. Wanted to
well, no questions, but I want to thank you for such a thorough report and bring it to our attention. And just keep us updated as it goes along.
I absolutely will.
Yeah, I know you will. But thank you for your work.
Ms. Kessler, thank you for the presentation again. I do have a question, actually.
Okay.
So I know the American Rescue Plan was passed today. It's going to be signed probably in a couple of days or so. In terms of the money that may come in from the federal level, would that money come in time for this current budget cycle, or make much of an impact, or would it be mostly for the upcoming budget years?
Well, in reading about it, there's not a whole lot of information out there yet, but it seemed to me that it was going to be coming pretty quickly, because it does require us to have a plan, a reopening plan in place within 30 days of receiving the funds. That's what it said. Now, I didn't read the legislation on it, but I did read school services article on it. And so if we're supposed to have a reopening plan within 30 days of receiving the funds,
yeah,
well, that would have to be pretty soon. And again, it's brand new, and so we'll have more information on it. But I do not think we're going to be waiting a long time for the funds.
Okay, cool. And then for the California SB and AB 86, I know you mentioned that if schools don't reopen their district by April 15th, there's going to be a loss of sort of potential revenue for the district with each passing day. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe this question for you and Superintendent in terms of, would we be able to open by April 15th? I guess that would be a general question.
Yeah, I see Superintendent Vidalis coming in, which is good.
Let's hold that question. I think in our conversation in the next presentation, we'll broach some of those questions, and I'm not sure I'm going to answer it, but at least it's more appropriate for that item.
I can tell you the dollar amount that Jefferson would get if we opened on April 15th. In accordance with all the requirements, and that is $1.8 million. But we're not, in a sense, we're not, from that second interim report, we're not losing it. I wouldn't take anything away from it because it's not in there. And it's also it's not included in that $12.8 million that I said that all those funds put together. I did not include that 1.8 in that number.
Okay, so the ABSB 86 as well as the federal stimulus are going to just be stacked on top of that.
Well, that portion of it, because the SBAB 86 is in two parts, and one of them is that expanded learning opportunity grant. That is like $3.9 million, and that 3.9 million I included it in when I said that total amount combined was 12.8 million, but I did not include the in-person learning portion.
Okay. And then I realized in the last meeting I'd asked about having to sort of foresee potential reductions, but I realized with all of these potential additional revenue sources that the multi-year projection report may change quite a bit.
Yes, that's true. And I think what I would like you to keep in mind is that anytime our current year revenues do not cover our current year expenditures, that is deficit spending. And that is something that needs to be addressed. It's just that right now it's so cloudy that it's just difficult to see what really needs to be done given all these funds that it's a dump truck of money. And we have to figure out how we can appropriately spend it that is compliant and best for the district.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for the answers.
I actually have a quick question, and also to thank you, Ms. Kessler, for this presentation. I think Trustee Koo kind of asked the question and answered it, but I just want to make sure that I am clear. So obviously this report, the second interim report, did not include the possible additional funding for SB and AB 86. as well as the additional federal stimulus funding. So this is not included in this report. So the next time we get a report would possibly be when we receive this possible funding, and it could be different depending on when we open our schools, because it could be reduced based on that. Is that correct?
Really, it's just a portion of it that would likely be reduced. And that's only the in-person part, the $1.8 million.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Other board members have questions or comments?
No, no questions. Thank you again, Ms. Kessler.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Ms. Kessler, we appreciate your time and the presentation. So, Superintendent Vidales, are we voting separately for B and C, or can we vote together?
Let's see.
You can vote them all
Yeah.
B and C all together.
Yeah, you can vote, you can make a motion for all together.
Okay.
So we need a motion to, well, you've reviewed the second interim, but you need a motion to approve the filing of a positive certification and also to approve the revisions to the working budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the filing of the position certification of the financial condition, as well as the approval of the revision to the working budget to correspond with the projected totals for the year 2020-21 second interim budget.
Second motion. Was that a tie?
In a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great, that was unanimous. Thank you again, Ms. Kessler.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 10A, certificated retirement 2020-2021. The administration recommends the approval of the retirement request from the following certificated employees and requests an appropriate resolution be prepared commending those with 10 or more years of service with the district. Wendy Duran from TIG as a second grade teacher, and Woodrow, teaching TIG and second grade teacher from Woodrow, effective June 12, 2021. Ms. Duran has been employed by the district since September 1, 1988. And also Charles Robach, principal at Susan B. Anthony, effective June 19, 2021. Mr. Robach has been employed by the district since July 18 of 2017.
Yeah, I would just like to thank Ms. Duran and Mr. Rohrbach for the years of service. Ms. Duran and I worked together while I was principal at Woodrow Wilson, and she's an excellent teacher and been a dedicated colleague for many, many years. Mr. Rohrbach, while he's only been here a few years, I've become very close with him, and I know his staff will miss him at Susan B. Anthony. So we appreciate their service.
Thank you, Mr. Valenti. Based on that, I'd like to make the motion as recommended to approve the retirement requests from Ms. Wendy Duran and Mr. Charles Robach, and to thank them for their service and to ensure that we have appropriate resolutions prepared for their years of service with the district.
I second that motion.
All right, there's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, thank you so much. And we go to 10D, Declaration of Need for Fully Qualified Educators 2021-2022. The California Commission on Teacher Credentialing requires the governing board to vote annually to approve the attached declaration certifying there may be an insufficient number of certified persons. Mr.
Yes, every year we have to declare make this declaration because there are times, even after a thorough recruitment, that we have difficulty finding teachers that are fully credentialed, and this allows us to apply for variable term waivers for those teachers while they complete their credential programs. Oftentimes, this is for the most difficult areas to find teachers, special education, folks certified to work with English learners. So it's something that we do annually and that the board takes action on. If there's any questions about that.
I will, sounds like no comments, so I'll make a motion that we approve the declaration certifying that there may be a sufficient number of certificated persons as presented.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
I said aye twice, only count one time.
Okay, I'll count your vote once.
For the record.
Yes, for the record. And moving on to 10E, Csva Waiver Declaration 2021-2022, the governing board of the Jefferson Elementary School District declares that the district is unable to recruit teachers and substitutes who have not had the opportunity to take and pass the California Basic Skills Test. The district anticipates employing 6 substitutes and 5 teachers on variable term Csva waivers for the 2021-2022 school year.
So this is similar to item D, where the district makes this declaration in anticipation if we get to a situation where we need to recruit folks who have not yet, as it says, had the opportunity to take the Csva. This year in particular, we had to use it because during the pandemic, the test was not offered. And so Csva waivers were essential for several of our staff members, particularly some of our international teachers. So it's more to have in case we need to invoke the need. If there's any questions I can answer.
If no questions, I will take the motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make the motion based on the recommendation that we declare if the district is unable to recruit teachers and substitutes who have not had an opportunity to take and pass the CBEST, that the district anticipates employing 6 substitutes and 5 teachers or variable term CBEST waivers for 2021 to 2022 school year.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. That was unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Valenti.
Thank you all very much.
And we're now on to 12A, Board Policies, Administrative Regulations, December 2020 CSBA Board Policy Revisions. Second reading. The board will review and revise board policies, administrative regulations from December 2020 CSBA board policy revisions as stated in a second reading. Any discussion?
I'll make the motion that we adopt the following revised board policy administrative regulations from December 2020 CSB board policy revisions as stated in a second reading.
I will second. I know that this is Trustee Koo's favorite part of the agenda, so just
It's the best part of every meeting.
I'm just trying to support you there, my fellow trustee.
Yes, definitely supporting you, Trustee Koo. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great. That was unanimous. Thank you. And now on to 13A, Board Governance Matters. Return to in-person learning update. Superintendent Bernardo Vidales will provide an update on the status of JESD return to in-person learning, staff vaccination progress, family and staff survey, latest state legislation impacts for JESD, and other related information.
Thank you. So let me share my screen here.
So we have one comment. Would you like me to read it before the presentation or after the presentation?
I think we can read it after.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's been 1 year. Last March, we entered into the region-wide shelter-in-place order that has put our students into distance learning, and we've remained in distance learning for this last year. So I just thought we'd mark that period. March 13th was when the shelter-in-place order was first issued, and we'll review that in a minute here. So as you know, or you may not know, maybe you're not as nerdy about these things as I, but California utilizes this blueprint for a safer economy, which defines the different tiers of reopening that we hear so much in the news. It was based on a document that was first published September of 2020, and it defines county risk levels with the coronavirus into 4 different levels. A purple level, which is widespread, a substantial level, which is red, moderate level, orange, and minimal level, yellow. And you remember some of the conversation back in December, January, people kept talking about a deep purple. It was never an official level. It was just something that was used to differentiate regular purple from really bad purple, which meant that ICU capacity was strained and actually at dangerous levels for quite a few weeks. My understanding is that these are going to undergo some kind of a transformation here in the next week or so. I'm not quite familiar exactly with where and how it will shift, but just know that this will change. Currently, San Mateo County is in the red tier, and you'll notice that some of the measures that San Mateo County has squarely put it in an orange tier. However, it needs to stay in a red tier, and any tier a county needs to stay for 3 weeks in that tier and meet the criteria for the next tier level for 2 weeks. So those 2 things can happen at the same time, which they have for San Mateo County, and San Mateo County is eligible to move to the orange tier next week. It would be the 3rd week in the red tier, and it would be the 2nd week of meeting the criteria for the orange tier or better. It has to meet all 3 criteria, and even if one of the criteria is for a lower tier, all 3 criteria have to be at that level. And you can't skip levels, so you always have to spend 3 weeks at a given level. So the criteria are daily adjusted cases, and these are the number of daily cases in a county that have been confirmed COVID cases. And adjusted is a term that's used because when a county tests above the state average of its population, it gets a credit for that because the more you test, the more you find. And it's not fair for a county that tests very rigorously to find 100 cases and a county that tests very lackadaisically to find only 10. That the county that found the 100 should be rewarded for a vigorous and rigorous testing process. So San Mateo County regularly gets credit, tests above the state average, So currently, the adjusted case rate for San Mateo County is 3. That's 3 daily new cases for every 100,000 of population. The positivity rate, now this measure is the percent of positive cases resulting from the total amount of tests that are given. This measure goes down when you test more people in general, because you get a lot more negatives that way. So currently it's less than 2%. It's at 1.2%, which is very good. And then related to that is the health equity index, which is the percent of positive tests in the census tracts that have the highest poverty and the lowest resources in San Mateo County. It generally runs, and it does here again, about twice as much as the overall countywide positivity rate. It doesn't do that in every county, but in San Mateo County, it has consistently done that for the last few months. And the health equity index was put in because the realization that the COVID crisis and infections were disproportionately impacting poorer communities. And this was an effort to keep an eye on that and to encourage counties to test and provide resources in those areas, because a county cannot move into a less restrictive tier unless their health equity index also moves. And so it's sort of a double-edged sword here, because it focuses a county's efforts into its poorer and less resourced communities, both for the testing as well as other services, health services. So San Mateo County is doing well on that compared to other counties, but it could do better. And it could actually, if we can get the health equity index to less than 2.2 for 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not sure, it can actually lead a county into a less restrictive tier, even if the other measures don't follow or are not too far behind. And that's how San Francisco County was able to reach the yellow tier last fall. So so when we speak about these tiers, this is what it's referring to. So let me just real quickly just review for you what's happened in the last year. So last March through December, as I mentioned, San Mateo County health orders put our schools into distance learning last March 13th. And initially it was for 3 weeks. It was 2 weeks of school and 1 week of spring break. And everyone thought, oh, okay, great, we're going to come back right after spring break. Well, that shelter in place order was now California shelter in place order was extended for 4 weeks until the 2nd of May. And folks were gearing up then to return, May 4th to school. California schools were then ordered by the governor to remain in shelter in place and distance learning until the end of the school year. So there was no choice to come back any earlier. At that point, our district teams began planning for a hybrid return to school and a virtual school offering, using what at that time was the first of its kind guidance in the field from San Mateo County Office of Education and San Mateo Health Department, the Pandemic Recovery Framework. And you're familiar with that. We speak about the 4 pillars. It has the, wear your facial coverings, health and hygiene practices, gathering limitations, and then the distancing requirements and recommendations. So that is sort of passé now, but back in May, it was a new thing. Nobody had put something like that together. Later in the summer, our school board decides that we will open school with 6 weeks of distance learning and then reevaluate at that point. And then further on in October, right about the 6-week mark, the school board decides to set criteria for returning versus a date. If you remember, we were having conversations like, why does December 1st, why is that any better than November 1st or January 1st? Like what is in a date? Would it make more sense to create criteria or conditions and have a conversation around that than an arbitrary date? Sort of link a date to the conditions versus hoping the conditions followed the declaration of a date. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, I certainly remember, there was really no guidance for us to have that conversation around criteria. I know I was grasping at information that I was able to catch and read what other agencies were doing. And really, when the board settled on this criteria, it was really what, felt good, or it felt like it made sense with what we knew. And so there was no guidance at that time that was able to guide bodies like our board to make this decision. So that changed in January. The California Department of Public Health did release guidance for schools to return. And some of the takeaways from that guidance are that safe returns can happen in schools when the county adjusted case rates are fewer than 25 a day. So that's where that term deep purple comes out. If you're 26 and 27, you're in deep purple. If you're less than 25, you're just regular purple. And that schools can return safely when you're less than 25, primarily meaning that the level of infection in the community is such that it's not going to distract a school community from opening up with a lot of elevated cases popping up among students or staff. The second thing that Department of Public Health guidance states is that safe returns can happen when staff and students observe distancing, masking, and hygiene practices. Those are, like I said, the practices that are the 4 pillars of the San Mateo County Office of Education Pandemic Recovery Framework that we are well versed in and practice. Those of us who work in a school site or work site like our district office practice all the time. The third thing that this guidance says is that schools have not proven to be a significant place of transmission for the virus. That there are more transmissions that happen outside of schools than in schools, and that there could be elevated levels of virus in a community, but the schools are not necessarily subject to that in terms of transmission of the virus. And part of the reason is people are practicing safe practices. They're wearing masks, they're staying 6 feet apart, they're practicing good hygiene. You hear people like Dr. Fauci say, if everybody did what schools are doing, we would get rid of this virus in no time. And that's because there's no transmissions happening in schools. And if we all distance and wore masks and washed our hands and avoided large gatherings, that we would eliminate the opportunity for transmission. San Mateo County has been operating schools in person since October in various communities, and there has been no school-based transmission. The same thing in Marin County, and there has been no school-based transmission in a lot of different places across our country and the world. School-based transmissions are minimal. The virus does get into the schools because it is in the community, but it doesn't replicate or doesn't jump. It is not passed from one person to the other on as much as it is in the community at large because of the practices put in place. So those are the sort of 4 major takeaways from that guidance, which I wish we had when we had our conversation back in October. It could have at least helped anchor some of the conversations that we had and some of the the outcomes that we reached. Another thing that's been happening in our schools, we've instituted small targeted learning cohorts. They started popping up in January. And what these are groups of supervised students, about 10 students and one staff member, an opportunity for students to learn in environments that have good internet connectivity, because we found that even some students, even with hotspots, don't have good connectivity in their home. Hotspots are reliant on cells like our phones are, and we all know that there are certain spaces and neighborhoods and rooms in our homes that don't get good coverage. And also, as Ms. Martinez mentioned, you do have younger siblings and other relatives in the home that often can cause a disruption to the learning environment. And so this is an opportunity to invite students onto campus in a supervised setting to be able to do their distance learning on campus. Some schools have used this as an opportunity to provide tutoring or academic support to a small group of students. This one is not on a daily basis. It might be 2 or 3 times a week where they can get that kind of support. And this is all under the California Department of Public Health earlier guidance that suggests that schools begin to implement these programs. Just for your information, 13 out of the 16 San Mateo County K-8 school districts have either begun or they will begin in-person learning by the end of March or early April. Jefferson Elementary, Pacifica School District, and Ravenswood City School District have not yet made an announcement. The San Mateo County, even the San Mateo County high school districts like Sequoia and unified school districts like La Honda Pescadero and others have started to return or are announcing a return to happen by mid-April. You may have heard also that San Francisco Unified will begin a return for their transitional kindergarten through 2nd grade in April. I haven't read the specifics, but the state's largest school district, Los Angeles Unified, has announced a reopening plan and target. So all around us, districts are returning to in-person school at some level. And as I told you back when we established the criteria to be in yellow, that we would be among the last to return to in-person learning, and we are here, and we are among the last. And let me just keep going a bit here because I want to talk about this. Mr. Koo brought it up and Ms. Kessler brought it up. Let me just tell you that these are not extra dollars. They are dollars that come out of Proposition 98, which are education dollars. So what the governor and the legislature have done is that they have taken money that should be coming to schools, and they said, you need to use it in this way to get it. And I put incentivizes our return to school because it's not really an incentive. The money is ours, but if we return to school, we get to keep it. We have $1.8 million that's designated for Jefferson Elementary School District if we can return to school. And I read April 1, Ms. Kessler said April 15th. I mean, the dates matter, but we do have a week of spring break in there that sort of takes out 9 days. So it matters by a couple of days. We do lose 1% every day until May 15th to access those dollars. And you must have every grade invited back from TK through 5th, and at least 1 grade in middle school and high school if you offer high school. So it has to be the whole grade. It can't be at one school or another school, or some schools. It has to be the whole district, every grade, TK5 invited back, and 1 grade level in middle school for us. So the districts that don't take the allotted funds give up their dollars. So the money is ours. It's Proposition 98 dollars. It should come to school districts, but we have to give it up because we were not able to open like the law prescribes. So it's more of a penalty for school districts. It's money that's ours that we're letting somebody else have. And it's unclear where that money will go. I know I was in a meeting. I was in a meeting where that question was asked, well, what's going to happen to that money? And somebody mentioned that it would go to the districts who are able to meet the criteria for reopening at the first, April 1st or 15th, whichever one it is. It gets redistributed to those school districts. And then also AB and SB 86 directs $4 billion for expanded learning opportunities, as Ms. Kessler mentioned. And for our district, $3.9 million for us that come to us, and we need to use that by August 2023. So this is a big deal. Certainly, $1.8 million is nothing to sneeze at, especially when you look at the kinds of deficits that our district is running. It's small compared to all the other funds, but it is still a lot of money. Mr. Koo asked the question, would we be able to return by April 15th or by April 1st? April 15th is definitely possible. April 1st, we could at least begin a return soon after we get back from a spring break, but we wouldn't meet that criteria for, until likely around April 15th. So if that's what the board, decides wants to do. So that's that. And I know I'll get a lot of questions on that, but let me just move on. And I just have to say, I love Ms. Martinez's presentations. They're so great. They have a lot of color. Mine are very boring, but we already had a chance to appreciate good presentations. And so this one will just be the facts. So there was a recent survey that we put out, and it was quick. We received about 1,500 parent guardian responses and 315 non-parent and guardian respondents. Most of those were staff members, some community, a handful of community members. The major findings from among families is that 55% indicate some readiness to return to in-person learning. 10% are unsure. They want to learn more. And this is striking because when we last did a similar survey, we found 75% of families were not ready to return. Only 25% were. So there's been a significant shift there. The greatest concerns about returning to school remain the same. They're concerned that schools will not be implementing the safety protocols, that other staff and students will not be following the guidelines such as masking and distancing. And this is an education opportunity for our school communities to provide examples and information around how these things will be met. And we do have a little video that will be included in our next district-wide newsletter that shows how some of these practices are put into place at a school that has a regular learning cohort group of students on campus. 48% of the families report negative changes in their child's behavior. And I read some of the comments. I'll provide those to the board at a later time. It brings one to tears to hear parents describing the turmoil their children are going through as a result of being in distance learning. Behavior changes, mood swings, tantrums, inconsolable crying. Like I said, it was very sad to read those comments. Not everybody did that. 48% of the families indicated that. Other families said, my child is thriving, my child is doing well, but 48% of students are not doing well, and something that we need to take into account. Of course, 60% of families said they would rather wait until the yellow tier to return, which, judging by the way things are moving, might be here sooner than we think, could be 3 weeks away. Among the respondents that were not the families, mostly staff members. Again, both of these, if I had to do it again, I would only send this out to families who are in the hybrid program and staff that are in the hybrid program. The virtual school families and the virtual school staff, they've indicated their preference for the year. So their responses may skew some of these results, but nevertheless, we didn't do it that way, or we weren't cognizant of that possibility. So 44% of staff or non-family members indicate readiness to return to school in person. 9% are unsure. So again, that's a pretty high number, much higher than it's ever been in past surveys. Similarly, greatest concerns about returning our staff and students are not following the guidelines. So there's some concern also among staff that the guidelines will not be observed. And they're concerned for the health of others in their home. Now, this survey went out right about the beginning of the vaccination time, probably not yet the opportunity for older adults living in the home or the family to get their vaccine. Certainly not an opportunity for individuals who are not over the age of 65, but have pre-existing conditions to get the vaccine. That window opens up on Monday. And certainly not the time, it split, the survey was right about the time as staff started getting their vaccines. So, you know, that concern for the health of others, I believe, you know, in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know, will be lessened just because those with pre-existing conditions have opportunity to be vaccinated and hopefully will have an opportunity to make a first appointment. All of our staff would be close to fully vaccinated if they wanted to. And older adults in the home have had opportunity. Hopefully, there's some very targeted events to get more people vaccinated. So hopefully we move closer to that. And again, 66% would rather wait to yellow to return. So the steps that are being or need to be taken are plans. You know, several weeks ago, the board approved a return to in-person learning plan that was based on community input and development and included all of our practices. That's been submitted to the County Office of Education and San Mateo County Health. It's currently under review. The latest version of that plan that was approved is on our district website and can be found and read there. We will certainly be directing families to that. Once it's approved, we'll be translating it into the multiple languages that we have, but we won't do that until we have one that doesn't have to be greatly modified. Vaccines, as mentioned before, we're getting our staff vaccinated. I would estimate that over 90% of our staff have received a first dose or have an appointment for one in the next week or so. We're continuing to message the importance of the vaccine for older, more vulnerable adults that are in our family communities and our neighborhood communities. Again, both the governor and the California Department of Public Health guidance suggests that vaccines are not necessary for a safe return, but they do provide an additional layer of protection for students in our schools. When all of the adults in the community have a vaccine, the chances of the virus entering the school community lessen greatly. We are continuing to work on agreements with our employee groups to finalize both how and when we might return to in-person learning, and we expect to have something completed soon so that we might be able to not give up as much of our funding from AB and SB 86. We can salvage some of that money. We won't be able to get it all, I don't think, unless something amazing happens. But we would certainly like to keep most of it because there are good uses for those funds. And then lastly, you know, action is needed. At some point, the board needs to determine when schools return to in-person learning. And certainly that's going to be influenced by any agreements we reach with our employee groups. But it will, it will take board action. And so the sooner we can reach agreement, the sooner the board can schedule an opportunity to take action on that agreement.
If I may add, because it seems like it's relevant right now, both Superintendent Vidalis and I were both correct on those dates. April 1st is the date that is required for bargaining unit and safety plan to be submitted. And April 15th is the date for the actual in-person instruction. I just, while you were discussing it, I went and I re-looked it up to.
Thanks for that, because I read a lot, and so the dates that stick to my mind were
and
the early dates.
Who was asked was talking about it, and so
April 15th, and that's a much easier timeline to meet. So I'm available for any questions on this topic or more detail on any of the particular things we touched on. But I do want to specify, and I will send to you again, the California Department of Public Health guidance on schools. What we were crying for and asking for last October came 3 months later. We now have it, and we should utilize it to make decisions about when and how to open schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Vidalis. I actually wanted to clarify, when you say TK to 5 and 1 grade in middle school to be invited by the April 15 date, that doesn't necessarily mean all the grades are in. We just have the plan to have them back, right?
No, the plan, I guess what Ms. Kessler said, the plans have to be ready by April 1st. So we've done that part already. We have the plan, but they do have to be in a school setting. It's not like we can start implementing our plan on April 15th and get all of our dollars. We get the dollars we get based on when that last grade level shows up in schools. So.
Okay, and does it seem like, I don't know.
Yeah, and as you remember, we did have a staggered entry plan for our grade levels. Our TK and first and second might return 1 week, and we get them acclimated. 2 weeks later, and third, fourth, and fifth grade, come back. Our sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, because they're largely at different schools, we don't have to sequence them after fifth grade. We could bring a grade level back with our TK first and second grade because they're at a different school, except for at FDR.
Yeah.
But the numbers are so small there, 60 students at a grade level. It's not, and only half of them would return of the ones who are not in the virtual program. So we're talking a small amount of sixth graders at the same time as TK 1 and 2.
Could I flesh that out a little bit more? So
Sure.
if not all the grades are back by April 15,
Mhm.
we will be losing no matter what, even if the TK to 2 are in, but not the rest of them. Are we still going to lose that 1% daily?
Yeah, we lose 1% each day until we get that last grade level in, and then it stops. And if we don't have that last grade level in by May 15th, you lose the whole thing. Like you can't qualify for any of it.
Wow. Okay. One more last question. Sorry, and I'll leave this to the trustees. Would we be able to break down the family responses, because family input is actually really important for me to make a decision, and I wanted to see like at what grade levels were they responding that they were getting
negative behavior? At what grade levels were they responding that they only wanted to come back to yellow tier?
Yeah, again, it was a quick survey. Like I said, I wish I was a survey maker and statistician and had lots of experience asking those kinds of questions. And I don't. So we didn't ask what grade level or what school, or we asked, how many students do you have in our school district? Most of the families had one student, several had, more than one. But that's about the only question that we asked. And I've had to do it over. Not only would we exclude virtual school respondents to get a sense of the hybrid, but we would ask questions of how old your student, like for each of your children that you have in the school district, list the behaviors that are being noticed. Many of them, like I mentioned, the most popular ones are very similar, sadness, depression, anxiety. Those are all symptoms of a type of depression that many of our students are experiencing as a result of this pandemic and the choices that we've made. So hopefully we get when Ms. Martinez talked about counselors being part of the recovery plan, that's going to be a big part of the recovery. Is the anxiety students feel from the comments I heard from parents is not just about being at home and not being with their friends and not socializing, but it's also about what's going to happen. Like when I go to school, am I going to get sick? So they have anxiety around that as well. So I think that these are all very real fears, and I'm sure they're shared by staff as well. And we just have to be very, very aware that that's the case. Yeah, next time I will work with the survey company rather than come up with questions and then kick myself after. Because one question I asked was, how concerned are you about your child returning to school? And later I was like, duh, 100% of our families are going to say, I'm very concerned because it is your child. I was actually surprised we had like 10% of families who said, I'm not very concerned at all. So they actually got the gist of the question, but I think most people were very literal. Like, of course, I'm very concerned about my child because I am. It's my child. I'm concerned about it. My daughter's a teacher, and so I'm concerned about her health going back to school. We just are. We're parents. That's our job. So I kick myself for asking that question in that way, and I could have thought about it and asked it differently.
President Mano, would you like me to read the public comment?
Yeah, we have one public comment on this topic.
Sure, Trustee Koo.
Okay. Speaker is Annette Geigold, a community member and a grandparent. Dear Superintendent Vidalis and school board members, I'm writing to you as a community member and grandparent of a Jefferson Elementary School District student. As a former educator, I'm extremely concerned that there has been no progress reported regarding the resumption of face-to-face classes for Jefferson Elementary School students. In-person classes were suspended almost a year ago, and it is imperative for children to return to the classroom. I highly encourage you to evaluate your current reopening guidelines and take a look at what other school districts are doing. For today's San Francisco Chronicle, SFUSD has just released new details on their reopening plan. Additionally, many public school districts in California have reopened or have set a reopening date, even schools in counties that are in the purple tier. Please keep the public informed regarding the current progress of the reopening negotiations. Thank you for taking the time to read my letter. Sincerely, Annette Geigold.
Yeah, and so just for the board to be aware, we will have a district newsletter going out next week where some more updates will be shared with families, and specifically what we are doing to prepare for a return to in-person learning and some of the guidelines that we're going to be able to enforce. Specifically, I think families need to understand that you're not wearing a mask and you don't have a condition that keeps you from wearing a mask, you're not allowed to be in the school. Whether you're a staff member or you're a student, you're not allowed to be there, because it's very important to keep our schools healthy, and that's the biggest intervention we can have. Any other questions or comments, or?
I actually have a question. So we talked about April 1st, April 15th. It sounds like the April 1st date we don't have to worry about since we already have a plan. And April 15th sounds like the date that we need to be more cognizant of.
Uh-huh.
So I guess, so say, hypothetically, like say, what would be the latest date that we would have to, as a board, make a decision on a reopening to be able to hit like an April 15 date, or like say a May 1st date or something like that? What would the time?
Yeah, so our promise to the community is that we would give them 2 weeks notice when they would start returning. So, we'd probably want to notice families before spring break, which the last day of school is April 2nd. We'd start the return. It all depends. Do you want all the students to be back by April 15th, or do you want to start returning? I think if we started on April 12th, we can get everybody back and lose maximum 10% of the funds, which is $180,000. That's a tolerable amount to not get. I guess I'm a little bit sour about that. This is not extra money. It's our money and we should get it all, but it's just being taken away from us. But perhaps that motivates us to do something about this. And I think San Mateo County is just in a really good place health-wise right now. Will it stay? We don't know. However, when we were in a very bad place health-wise, in November and December, the schools that were open stayed open, and they were able to mitigate any transmission of the virus in their school setting. Like nobody got it at work, or no child brought it home from school. There were children and there were staff members who showed up and had positive infections, but they did not spread it. Because how we behave in schools is very weird. We don't do this anywhere else. I like coming home because I could be closer to my family. At work, I have to talk, to Ms. Rivera. We're 6 feet away from each other. We're like, or every so often we realize, oops, take a step back. I'm too close. But we've created these ways of interacting that once we're all vaccinated in our district office, it's going to be weird to like break that 6-foot barrier when we do, just as weird as it was back in June when we started putting it into practice. Like we were all used to a 3-foot away from each other because that's sort of common American social distance. And then it was like 6 feet. Oh my gosh, that's twice as far as normal. That was a really weird sensation because we're used to 3 to 4 feet of being away from each other when you're having a conversation. And then you find yourself at opposite ends of the room talking to each other. Anyway, it'll be strange when if that is lifted after we're vaccinated. So, and everyone at the district office is getting their vaccine. So it'll be about 3 or 4 weeks before that's the case, or 6 weeks maybe. Give it the 2 weeks of taking effect. Any other question?
I actually had a comment and question. So I want to be positive here and say that yes, we're definitely going to go into the yellow tier, and things are going to start, being on the up and up. In the event that we don't go to the yellow tier and cases start to rise again, will we still have to be under this mandate of getting this funding before that time frame, or will it change anything if the cases start to go up?
I think as long as the health department doesn't close us down, then we are still subject to it. I think, or let's just say, because this is for any counties, school districts and counties that are red or better, right? So if we for some reason ended up in purple again and we still haven't fully opened up, I don't think that's held against us. But if we're red or better, then we're eligible to open. And this is all information I wish we'd had in October, because back in October, if we were in red, we had to apply for a waiver. And I remember having this conversation with you guys saying, if we have to apply for a waiver, that means it's not safe. Like, why do they make us do something extra if it's safe, right? If we have to take extra precautions. And I always felt uncomfortable with the idea of a waiver, because it means that we're asking for an exemption from what is, I'm a common guy. I don't like exceptions. I just want what's regular. So now the waiver is just when we're in the purple level and red level. Anybody can open up with just a review of your plan by your local jurisdiction.
The second question that I have is, so in the event that we are able to open up, but we don't get in time and we lose money that technically we should have gotten anyway, what are the ramifications of that, being that we just had that budget presentation and we're already basically in some sort of deficit?
So, we are not attributing any of those dollars into what you just viewed, so it wouldn't be any less than that. It would be just that. I think that $1.8 million is very flexible and can be spent in a variety of ways and could actually be used to shore up some of those deficits in some of those years, as maybe some of that federal funding might also. But usually with funding come additional restrictions and additional activities that you have to take on and spend on, right? You can't just do what you've done and help pay for that. Usually there's extra things that have to happen. That's what that expanded learning opportunity grant is, the extra $4 million or 3.8 for us. We're going to have to do extra things for that.
Thank you, Superintendent. And then the comment that I was going to make is to President Manio's point about the survey and figuring out, what demographic, whether it be, TK through 5th grade or middle schoolers responding to that survey. Obviously, I am a parent of children in the elementary and actually the middle school. And, I can attest to some of the hardships my youngest, who's in kindergarten, has with honestly just focusing on a screen. I know it is a shorter time span than the middle school or actually the older students from a kindergarten standpoint. But at least for the older students, I'm also seeing, they're in that stage where they're, or at least for my daughter, she's in that stage, and apologies, I'm gonna go on mute for a second.
Are you
very excited? It's a very excited dog. He's not going to stop barking. Okay.
They're not going to stop barking. They're like, oh my God. But what I was trying to say is that they're at that age in middle school where they're learning themselves. And, I think some of them moved from 7th into 8th or 6th into 7th. We're really out having that social environment. And so I see my own kid kind of, becoming socially awkward or like not understanding how to, put your screen on and engage when they have the small groups. And so I really do understand what the parents are going through, whether that be from reopening and scared to let their children back to school, but also talking about the obligations of having to work from home and making sure that your child is engaged in class and not twiddling their fingers or running off, and you're like, oh, I wasn't focusing because I was doing my own work obligations. And so my heart goes out to the families in our district as well as our teachers, because I know it's been a year and we're still basically in the same, not necessarily the same spot, but we're still distance learning. And so I'm hoping everyone just hangs in there, and I'm hoping for positivity in terms of us remaining on the up and up and going down into this yellow tier so that we can truly open our schools, that we can receive that $1.8 million, because I think it would be amazing to use that towards all the things that we have to work towards. And so again, I appreciate the presentation, and I look forward to the decision that we will make as a board.
I have one more question. So I know currently San County is in the red, and we may or may not move next week down to orange, which would be like, I'm trying to do the math here in terms of like the calendar, because I realized next week would be the 17th. And if I'm correct, you can't move another tier every week, right? You have to move it every 2 weeks or so.
You have to, if I remember correctly, I think it's 3 weeks before you can move.
Oh, okay. So say, for example, like next week, as the earliest we can move, it would be the 17th. And if we're doing a 3-week approach, you wouldn't hit yellow until April 7th.
Correct.
And I'm thinking, so say, if we have a meeting on the 14th?
We have a meeting on March 24th.
Okay. So I'm like trying to think through, like, say, if we wanted to be able to sort of reopen our schools, to be able to at least get that 1.8 million, we would probably have to like act immediately after that, in that sense, right? So like have to do some kind of special meeting before that. And
or I mean, if you wanted to wait until yellow to make the decision, but I think you don't have to. I mean, when we made that decision, and that's where I was trying to bring it up, and we didn't have the information, and there was no vaccine even on the horizon.
Now there is.
When we have over 90% of our staff members vaccinated, and like I said, in the next 5 weeks we should be fully vaccinated, get double dosed. That makes a difference, and it makes a difference in terms of, I mean, even a single dose vaccine for those of us who've been able to have it is a sigh of relief. Like, okay, I have some protection, but a double dose can be even more. And then 2 weeks after that second dose is, anyhow. So I would say that we're still, like I mentioned, we're still having conversations and trying to reach agreement with our employee groups. I'm hopeful that by, on the 24th, that I could bring something to you to say, here's an agreement that defines how we open up and when we open up, and that you would feel comfortable with that agreement, that we would then start to communicate to families.
So would it be too soon to like see if we can discuss this in terms of sort of opening at our next meeting? Or would that be too soon if there isn't necessarily an agreement with all?
Well, I'll discuss it with Ms. Matt. I think the board can discuss it regardless of whether or not there's agreement. It would be nice to have an agreement to vote on at that meeting, but I can't promise that. Okay. We do meet again in the next couple of days with our employee group, and this is a tough thing, because many of us know individuals who have fallen as a result of this virus, and it's not a light manner, but we the the fact that we've had so many schools that are in our communities in San Mateo County open with very little transmission on sites, you know, some people say, and I don't know if I agree with it, I have to look at it like it's safer to be in school than it is to stay home or be in the community because the transmission rates are so much lower in a school site than they are in the community. I don't know. I can't say that myself. I've just heard that people have said that.
Good.
Liang, I know I can't help but notice some of the emotion that's welling up in you. If you feel comfortable sharing, I think your colleagues would love to hear.
Yeah, I've shared before. Last year was 54 for me, but I've had a funeral every weekend this year again. I went to one this weekend. I have two this weekend, and have another next weekend. All due to COVID. All due to COVID. So we've all felt the heaviness of the grief of loved ones, people we know, and just being inundated with it on the media. So that's why I said earlier, I really commend you, Superintendent Vidalis, for facilitating the vaccine. You know, I wish our educators were at the front end because I feel like we should have been right up there on the list. But the fact that we're getting it now, it means a lot to a lot of people. And to hear, you know, a parent share her feelings today about what needs to be done, or at least raise awareness about it, I appreciate that, because some of the grief is the unknowing and the unsettling feelings. But if we get a sense of just clarity around plans or pre-planning, or just hearing something in the pipeline of moving forward, is a sense of hope. And I know I'm clinging to hope because it's just heartbreaking. You know, it's one thing to lose someone, but to continue to see the loss due to COVID is difficult. It's very difficult. But what I love to see and hear, being a parent myself who struggles with a daughter who's special needs, but who just is so disconnected, who had an opportunity to return and finish out her senior year in school and said, I don't want to do it. I had to reply to the principal on Friday and tell the principal at Shasta that she doesn't want to return. Then I had a son who graduated from University of Hawaii, and we had to celebrate him, you know, in our cul-de-sac. You know, our children are suffering so much loss in so many ways. And as a community, we're continuing to carry this grief in so many ways. It's not just physical loss. It's the loss and sense of connectedness with those that we want to see. Like, I'm dying to see you guys. I miss hugging you all during meetings, but my heart continues to break at the loss that we're suffering. I appreciate the vaccine, but until we get this right, until we continue to mask up, and even when we're vaccinated, which is what I continue to tell my family, even though some of us are fully vaccinated or we received our dose, I start to see people getting reckless. So my pitch tonight, even if you're getting vaccinated, please remember that we still have to adhere to the safety protocols, because this is still not over. This is just a step forward. We're still not over the hump of really being fully safe. So I appreciate the opportunity to share. I know we've had a long night, but I just really miss you all. I know we all miss each other and being around each other, but I sit with so much pain. I can't even begin to share that out. I just hold on to it, and I just make the moment I have with anybody count. I've subscribed to Team Waste No Minutes for a while now since this pandemic, and I tell you guys, just make every moment count, because I will tell you, some of the people that I'm burying, I never thought I would be burying them now. Never. I really thought I'd have them a little bit longer. So I don't take anything for granted. 54, and this year alone, I'm already at 21. And we're only in March. So this pandemic is just, I'm dying for it to go away. I really am. So I wish you all the best. Let's just continue to hang in there, and the teachers, our families, all of our staff. My heart goes out to you. All of us, we know the frustration that you're carrying, and we carry it with you. And we just ask you to just continue to toe the line, continue to hold on. We're all just doing our best. Everyone is. And that looks different for everyone. But God bless you all. Thank you, Superintendent Vidalis.
I have a question, last one, and I know this has been a long night. Would it be, and to Superintendent Vidalis and my fellow board trustees, us putting the reopening on the agenda until we're fully open? I don't know if you got that question.
Kind of.
Can you say it again? Can you say it again?
Repeat it again.
Okay, if my dogs start barking, please disregard. I apologize. So would it be fair or okay to place on the agenda basically the same discussion until we're ready to make an action on it, just so that this is top of mind every meeting. We're putting the transparency out to our teachers in our community that they know we understand, number one, that we want to reopen our schools, and this is something that is at the forefront of our mind. But secondly, that we are trying to obviously get funding for our district, and knowing that if we do not reopen before the time frame, that we will lose that funding as well.
Yeah, I think Ms. Manu and I can discuss, how to do that, and I think it's very possible. So, yes.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to Trustee Jordan for that, because I think some of us have been receiving emails from, and Superintendent Vidal, but I know that we've been getting some communication online and just in various forms of people saying, please give us an update. And so I would like to encourage, even if it's just like we have no update, at every meeting, but even if we get during our acknowledgements, maybe that would be a good time to just let people know that we don't have an update. We are continuing to, check in with the county, public health, CDC, the state. I just think, some people just need to hear it so that they know something is happening, even though they don't see it.
Yeah, I can certainly put it on there instead of just information. I'll always put it on action just in case the board is moved to take an action at any, because, we publish our agenda like 6 days before the next meeting. So you don't know if you want to take an action, like what transpires in those 6 days, you might want to. So I think I'll just always put it on as an action item. Okay. And we don't have any comments on the next item, so.
Are there any other comments from other board members or questions? No? Okay, thank you so much, Superintendent Vidalis. Very informative on a very, very heavy topic.
I just have to smile because, when Ms. Manu and I plan these meetings, and, those of you who've been board presidents, we usually try to be done with regular session by 9. And I don't think we've hit that last couple. And, I was like, what could go wrong? Like, we had some very powerful presentations tonight that, deserved the time that we're given. So,
I'll add something to that. I think it's important that it took us a while, because anyone who's listening to that knows that we're all working together through all of this together. It's important. So thank you for everyone participating in this.
And like Superintendent Vidalis said, it doesn't seem like there's anyone wishing to address the board on any unagendized or closed session items. So we'll move on to governance team member comments. Would anyone like to go? Feel free to say pass if you want to pass.
I pass.
I think I spoke in between everything else, so I'll pass. But thank you for your service too.
I'll just say, I know some tough topics tonight, things we have to discuss. So appreciate the conversation. Just thanks for sort of all the insights and perspectives.
Me too. This will be my first pass in 5 years. So thank you.
Just wanted to thank you all for hanging in there this evening. I know it's been a long night, and I want to thank everybody who presented today, and actually, especially you, Trustee Laina Anawai, for sharing those heartfelt moments, and my sympathy goes out to you and everyone else who's been impacted by this virus. It's definitely a heavy situation for all of us. If there's nothing else, I would actually like to close this meeting in a moment of silence for Jose Alvarez, father of Gerardo Alvarez, custodian at Thomas Policita and JFK, and Vanessa Alvarez, special circumstance instructional assistant at MP Brown, and also father-in-law of Grace Rainey, food service assistant at JFK, as well as for David Tejada, 12th Signal Company, Philippine Scouts, survivor of the POW Bataan Death March and Camp O'Donnell, and father of Rosie Tejada, president of our sister Jefferson Union High School District Governing Board, member of Jefferson Elementary School District Citizen Oversight Committee, and past chair for JESD's bond election campaign. And I'll adjourn this meeting at...
We're not adjourning. We're gonna move into closed session.
We'll move into closed session, ending this at 9:55 p.m.
Okay, great. And then let's take a short break, and 5 minutes or 10 minutes. 5. Let's do 5 because it's late. Yeah, we'll be back here at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Don't leave the meeting. Just turn off the camera and your sound.
Wait, are we off now?
We're just
Yeah.
mute.
What?
We'll be back at 10, Marie.
Yeah, I know, but I heard people talking, so as I took this off, so I want to make sure. Wait a minute.
You're good.